Hey, how's it going, guys? So this is going to be my early look into Week 6 for the NFL Sunday Main Slate. We've got the biggest game of the regular season between the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs. We've been waiting for this game since the postseason of last year. It's going to be huge, the highest point total game on the main slate this week. I'm going to be going over the top 5 point totals for their individual teams. Then I'm going to be giving an alternate matchup between two teams that have a pretty high game total as well. And then we're going to be building a winner-take-all lineup for $1. The top main prize is going to be $500. So we're going to be doing that at the end of the video. So we're going to be doing it a little bit differently on this video. I'm going to be giving some stats and kind of going about it a different way that I have been so far this season. So let's go ahead and jump into it and take a look. So as I said, we're not even going to wait for it. We're just going to go ahead and jump right into the biggest game of this regular season and more importantly this week for Week 6. So let's go ahead and jump right into the biggest game on the main slate. To start us off, we got the two quarterbacks here, Josh Allen, who's averaging 32 fantasy points a game so far this season. Just putting up monster numbers regardless of the opponent. He's just been the absolute stud that you've drafted him at in your standard fantasy leagues. Then we got Patrick Mahomes, who's not far behind him, still putting up 25 fantasy points a game. Definitely has a ceiling comparable to Josh Allen. Just hasn't been as consistent as Allen this year, but we know that he's more than capable of getting you there for your lineups. Kansas City here, they've got a team total of 25.75, so with that, you got Patrick Mahomes. You know his pass catchers, Juju Smith-Schuster, MVS, Sky Moore, who saw a little bit of a run at the end of the game this past week. And then, obviously, the big dog in that offense, Travis Kelce, who's at $7,800, scored 4 touchdowns this past Monday night. Saw eight targets with 7 receptions. Again, the 4 touchdowns is just absolutely ridiculous. Obviously, the best tight end for fantasy football by far. Then on the flip side of that matchup, you got the Buffalo Bills, who are the number 1 team as far as point total. So we'll come back around to them. So again, Kansas City is going to be the 5th highest point team total on this slate here at 25.75 game points. Obviously, that can definitely shoot up a lot higher should this game shoot out. If you watch that game from the postseason, you know for a fact that it can definitely easily shoot out, which we like that in fantasy. We're really hoping for it. It just sucks that it could come down to another coin toss again this year. Moving on to the 4th highest team totaled team for this main slate is going to be the Tampa Bay Bucks with the matchup against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Tom Brady is going to be the head of that offense there at $6,300. He's been very lackluster for the majority of the season, only averaging 17.7 fantasy points. But as you can see, if you take a deeper look here, you got 29.4, 22.74 fantasy points with healthy receivers. Again, Mike Evans has been dealing with the nagging injuries and was suspended for the Lattimore incident. Chris Godwin has been less than 100% for the majority of the season as well. Russell Gage has been okay so far. Julio Jones not really providing a huge role in that offense. And they're without Gronk, a true viable tight end option. Brate has been okay. It's just apparent that he's definitely missing Gronk, that tight end. target, but we know where he's going with the targets. We know he's going to go to Mike Evans. We know he's going to Godwin. Again, Gage has been okay. I mean, he's seeing around 5 or 6 targets per game. Obviously, he had a spike week here with the absence of, I think that's when Mike Evans and Godwin were both out. So he really had to lean heavy on Gage that week, putting up that 25.7 fantasy day. But again, that's going to be an outlier in the statistics there. So Russell Gage is going to be that 4 to 5 target guy, with the majority of them going to Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. On the other side of the ball, we got Kenny Pickett at quarterback with Deontay Johnson, George Pickens as well. You can go cheap with George Pickens. You know he's going to have a high ceiling. The guy's just a freak athlete, getting a healthy share of the targets as well. The offense just really isn't what we're used to seeing as far as the Steelers when Big Ben was rolling and was just feeding the ball to his receivers with AB when he didn't take too many concussions, and just a killer passing offense. But George Pickens, a young star in the making. Cheaper. He's one of the cheaper wide receivers on the slate that can have a huge, 20-point, 30-point even ceiling should he get on a roll. Should Kenny Pickett somehow figured the NFL game out. And then you got Pat Fryermuth, who sustained a concussion during the game against the Bills, so he may not be in play. Something to keep an eye out for. And then you got Chase Claypool as basically the third man in this offense at $4,500. Saw 9 targets this past week with a 10-point fantasy day. I think he's going to come back around to 5 or 6 targets, with the majority of the targets going to George Pickens and Deontay Johnson. Moving on to the third highest point total team this week on the main slate is going to be the Green Bay Packers with a matchup against the New York Jets. Again, we know who the quarterback is, Aaron Rodgers, at $6,100. We got Alan Lazard as his main pass catcher, with Romeo Doubs and Randall Cobb being the main pass catchers in that group, along with Robert Tonyan, who's been pretty productive since his return to the main roster. 7 targets and 4 targets in week 3 and 5. Didn't exactly see the volume that we wanted to in week 2 and 4, but he did get the touchdown in week 4 against New England to save his fantasy day. I think he's going to be more along the lines of that 4 to 5 target range for the most part on the season. I don't think that you'll see him less than 4 targets. More, I would say you'll see him have more than 4 targets more times than not in that offense. Alan Lazard kind of being the quasi-alpha pass catcher in that pass catching group between the wide receivers. Seeing the majority of the targets, 8 targets for week 5 and 4, and then 6 targets in week 3. Double-digit fantasy points the past 3 weeks. So we like to see that. We like to see the targets stay around that range. Been the main guy to find the end zone so far this season. So we know that Aaron Rodgers has the most trust in him out of all the guys besides Randall Cobb. Again, Alan Lazard being the most elite, I guess, with the lack of a better term, in that group. Then we got the young gun, Romeo Doubs, at $4,800. Seen 8 targets in week 3 and 4, and then saw 5 last week against the New York Giants. I think this guy has the highest ceiling out of all the pass catchers in this group, just because of his athleticism, his his build as well. So Romeo Doubs at $4,800 is pretty big value in this offense. And then we got Randall Cobb, the most trusted of the wide receivers on the Green Bay Packers. Kind of came out of nowhere with this performance. 13 targets, 7 receptions. Didn't even get into the end zone, still put up 16.9 fantasy points. Whether or not you're going to keep seeing that, I'll hold off. I think he's going to stay around this 3 to 4 target range just because of the talent with Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson once he's healthy, and Alan Lazard. But I do like the fact, on a personal level, I do like the fact that Randall Cobb is getting some of that attention from Aaron Rodgers, with that old duo. Aaron Rodgers really pulling for him to come back from Houston after, as A-Rod put it, mishandled Randall Cobb in that in that trade a couple years back when he went to Houston. But on the flip side of that, we've got the New York Jets. We got Garrett Wilson, who's been an absolute stud, at least early on in the season. Since Zach Wilson's been back, he hasn't exactly been that top receiver that we saw when Joe Flacco was in. Saw 6 targets in week 4 last week against Miami, who's a little bit of a tougher defense as far as pass defense goes. His average yards per catch, though, is the one that sticks out. He's averaging 12 yards a catch, so we like that. That's awesome. He's definitely in play for that New York Jets offense. My favorite receiver on the New York Jets offense when Zach Wilson is healthy and playing is Corey Davis. As I mentioned last week in my wide receiver values, Corey Davis, when Zach Wilson's in, he targets Davis. We saw it last year. We saw a little bit of it up against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So that's again, that's kind of an outlier, I believe, as far as his performance with Zach Wilson. Corey Davis by far being my favorite target for the Jets. And then you've got Elijah Moore, who would seem to be the alpha dog in that wide receiver room, with the hype that he came into the season with last season, and then with another year under his belt this season as well. Just hasn't lived up to the hype. 4 targets in the past 2 weeks with Zach Wilson being there. Whether or not they're just not clicking, I'm not sure what it is, but Elijah Moore is not exactly worth the higher price point versus Corey Davis or Garrett Wilson. So to bring it back with Aaron Rodgers and that Green Bay offense, we know who the pass catchers are. We know that they got the third highest team total for the week, so definitely going to be playable. I might actually even come back for the lineup build at the end of the video. The 4th highest point total team on the main slate is going to be the Arizona Cardinals with the matchup against the Seattle Seahawks. We got Colin Murray here at $7,300. He's been running the ball a little bit more the past 2 weeks with 12 attempts against Carolina, 4 against Philly. It was a really big matchup last week against Philly. Didn't quite do enough to get the win. 42 pass attempts, though, which we like here. He's a pretty efficient, 66.7 completion rate here against a tough Philly secondary. So that's good to see. He's 1 week out from getting back D-Hop, so that offense is going to be really rolling once he's back. But with this matchup against Seattle, who's been extremely efficient with Geno Smith at quarterback, with Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, this game could be a sneaky shootout here, especially in the later slate. That can win some tournaments for sure. They dropped him down from $7,400 to $7,300. the fact that they're willing to throw the ball 42 times, with the ceiling at 58 pass attempts. Of course, that game went into overtime, so that's a kind of a outlier as well. But throwing the ball over 40 times, we like that. We like the opportunity for his receivers, which are Marquis Brown, who's been the stud of the group so far. I mean, he's getting double-digit targets 4 out of the first 5 weeks of the season. He's averaging 20 points a fantasy day here so far this season as well at $7,200. So you're going to have to pay a little bit of a premium for him again this week. They've got Rondell Moore. He's been easing back, coming off that injury for the majority of the beginning of the season so far. In his first week, they eased him in, bringing him back with Philly at 8 targets with 7 receptions for 68 yards. 13.1 fantasy points for his second game back. So, that's probably where he's going to be at until D-Hop gets back in week 7 or 8, assuming that he's going to be healthy right off the rip. Then we got Zach Ertz here at $4,900, who's been really quietly a really good tight end pick for fantasy this year, averaging 13 points for fantasy. He's not Travis Kelce, he's not Mark Andrews, but the target share that he's getting, double-digit targets for 3 out of the past 5 weeks, getting into the end zone twice so far. He's putting up double-digit fantasy points at a tight end spot for being less than $5,000. Very viable pick, very very playable in this week's matchup. And
obviously in the Seattle bring back spot there, we got DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Tyler Lockett, $5,600, super big value in this matchup. Tyler Lockett last week put up 30.4 fantasy points on 5 receptions for 104 yards and 2 touchdowns. Obviously, he's not going to do that every single week, but and it's going to be hard to ignore DK Metcalf being the freak athlete that he is. So they're definitely playable. They're definitely good values. Tyler Lockett being the better value, I think. With Geno Smith being as efficient as he is, again, this matchup could definitely be an easy shootout that a lot of people are going to be playing off of with this big Kansas City Chiefs and Buffalo Bills matchup. And speaking of, we've made it back around to that matchup between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills. We got Josh Allen, as I mentioned earlier, who's been averaging 30 points for fantasy. Again, he's been the number 1 fantasy quarterback coming into the season, proving that he's definitely been that guy for fantasy owners. On the wide receiver side of things, we got Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, and then if McKenzie can't go, then we got Shakir. We had a pretty good fantasy day, especially for showdown lineups. It was really that sneaky pick that shot guys up the ladder for showdown. 3 receptions on 5 targets with a touchdown, 16.5 fantasy points with 75 yards, averaging 25 yards a catch last week against the Pittsburgh Steelers. We've got Dawson Knox, who may or may not be good to go this week, so keep an eye on that. If he's out, look for Quentin Morris at $2,800. Put up a decent fantasy day at that price point at 26. Big-bodied receiver, or tight end, for red zone targets. Tommy Sweeney was completely absent last week. I had him in a bunch of showdown lineups, so that completely made sense. If I'm playing them, they're not going to be looked at all by the quarterback. I've already went over the pass catchers for Kansas City for bring back players, so I'm going to try and put some stats into this as well to kind of give you guys some things I'm looking at to better inform you about where to go for picks. In the lineup build, I'm probably not going to play a true stack with these guys. Like, I'm not going to go pay this huge premium for Josh Allen, Diggs, and Gabe Davis, and you can go Kelsey here too, but I'm not going to go there. It's too hard to get there as far as salary goes for those two teams. So I'm probably not going to do that for that matchup as far as lineup builds go. One last final lineup build, one last matchup that I think is going to be viable for this week is going to be the Minnesota Vikings and the Miami Dolphins. You've got Kirk Cousins, who hasn't exactly been the fantasy stud that we thought he could be with that new offensive coordinator, that new passing game that we thought was going to be really prolific this year. After Justin Jefferson even talked highly of it. We know that his ceiling's up there around 25, 28 points. And then with the pass catchers, he just hasn't been efficient enough to spread the ball around like we want him to with Adam Thielen. And a majority of the targets going to Justin Jefferson, though. 13 targets in the past 2 weeks. Double-digit targets 4 out of the past 5. But whenever he does find Jefferson, good things happen for fantasy football. 42.4, 34, and then 33.32 for his top fantasy days so far this season. Just completely going wild 3 out of the past 5 games. So viable matchup there. Depending on the quarterback situation for the Miami Dolphins, I highly doubt Tua's going to play. I'm pulling that he doesn't play. I feel like he should just come back at week 8. But it's neither here nor there. So should he be out, Teddy Bridgewater may come back this week, depending on concussion protocol again. So maybe that might be the deciding factor on whether or not you should play this lineup, depending on who's that quarterback this week. Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, obviously we know what they're capable of, getting you the 35 point ceiling. Obviously that was a outlier of outliers here for that Baltimore game for both of them, scoring both over 43 fantasy points each. Again, highly doubt that happens again without Tua, especially. So again, just monitor the quarterback situation for that game to really determine whether or not they're going to be playable for you. So, like I said, we're going to go ahead and build a lineup here with this for this $1 winner take all $500 prize contest. It's 594 entries. I think the max entries you can do is 15, but we're going to go ahead. We're going to have a dart throw here and just do one lineup. As I said, I'm not going to be paying up for the Buffalo Kansas City Chiefs game for my central stack there. I am going to try and get a piece of it at least. So I'm going with the Aaron Rodgers stack against the New York Jets. I feel like Aaron Rodgers has been able to figure out a few things with that offense after seeing that performance with Randall Cobb. Finding ways to get him open. But to go off of that, to pivot off of that, I think a lot of people are going to be going after Cobb after seeing that type of performance. We'll go with Romeo Doubs, and then we'll go with Robert Tonyan here at $3,600 to get more value for when we come back to that Kansas City and Buffalo game. And for the bring back players here, we're going to go with my favorite pick, Corey Davis, as the bring back player. And then for defense, to go ahead and get that out the way, we'll go with the Panthers offense, hoping that they can get a pick six somewhere in there against a relatively reckless Matthew Stafford, who's been known to throw a couple pick six over the past couple years, whether it was for the Lions or for the Rams so far. Let's see. Let me go ahead and put let me go to wide receiver here and put Corey Davis back. That way we can leave that flex spot open. And so, like I said, we're going back to the Kansas City Chiefs and Buffalo. We're trying to chase as much ceiling as possible. So, again, we're going with Stephon Diggs. We're going to see if we can go with Travis Kelce. And we still got $6,000 left for average player remaining. So, we're still sitting pretty good for the running back position. So, we're going to have to go find some value here. For that running back spot, J.K. Dobbins being that guy for us here at $5,500. Had a really good fantasy week against Buffalo with 13 attempts, 41 yards for a touchdown, and then 4 receptions with a receiving touchdown as well for 22.3 fantasy points. Didn't follow it up with a great performance, but that's all the better. Keeping his salary pretty low. We'll go ahead and play J.K. Dobbins in that spot with the matchup against the Giants, leaving us $6,600 remaining for our lineup build here. We can go Ramondre Stevenson with Damian Harris out this week or for an extended period of time. We can go with Jeff Wilson Jr. here as well. Who's been getting a steady running back share for the backfield touches there for the 49ers. So I think that's where we're going to go. We're going to go ahead and go with Jeff Wilson Jr. We're not going to play CEH. We've already got enough exposure for that matchup with the two top pass catchers in that lineup. So to finish out this lineup build, we got Aaron Rodgers with the matchup against the New York Jets, J.K. Dobbins, Jeff Wilson Jr. For our main stack, we got Romeo Doubs and Robert Tonyan with the bring-back player at Corey Davis for the New York Jets. And then our piece of the game of the week, basically, for the Buffalo Bills and Kansas City Chiefs, we got Stephon Diggs and Travis Kelce with the Panthers punt for defense. Go ahead and enter that for $1. And boom, we're in. I think that's a pretty solid matchup. We just got to hope for this New York Jets and Green Bay Packers game to really shoot out and hope that J.K. Dobbins and Jeff Wilson Jr. stay true to form as they have for the past past 2 weeks. All right, guys. So that was a quick early look at Week 6. A little bit longer video than usual, but again, I wanted to go over some of the stats and kind of be a little bit more structured in the way I was going about presenting the team totals and the matchups and how I wanted to do this lineup build for this contest. So thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and stay tuned for the rest of the videos I come out with this week. I'm going to try and come out with a stacks video, a wide receiver value video, as well as a running backs value video. And drop a comment on how you liked it, how you liked the video, how you liked the different structure of it this week, and let me know of any ways I can improve or give some picks of your own. So thank you guys again for watching, and come back for some more fantasy football content throughout the season. Thanks.